If I had stayed in one place at one time and been bored, I would not have picked up the skill set that I have today.
From the Understood Podcast Network, this is How'd You Get That Job? A podcast that explores the unique and often unexpected career paths of people with learning and thinking differences. My name is Eleni Matteo, and I'm a user researcher here at Understood. That means I spend a lot of time thinking about how we find jobs we love that reflect how we learn and who we are. I'll be your host. Rachel Basoco is our next guest. Rachel has ADHD. Her passion is community building, and she does this in her 2 jobs in 2 very different industries. She's a full-time director of advancement and growth for digital communities at Fidelity, a financial company. She also works part-time for 1111 Media, Paris Hilton's company, working on building their Web3 community. Rachel was only diagnosed with ADHD in the last 2 years. We reflect together on how some of her past experiences shaped her self-image and how things like boredom taught her to pay attention to what ignites her, and also guided her to seek the supports and positions that make her shine. Let's hear from her about how she builds her work to work for her. Super excited to have you on the show, Rachel.
I know. Yay. Exciting to talk this way.
I know. We actually haven't talked that much about work, which is funny. I feel like I have a bunch of friends in New York City where like it literally took me over a year to even find out what their day job was.
Yeah.
There's just so many other things to talk about. So this is exciting. Rachel is a friend from New York City. We know each other from overlapping communities. And so I feel like it's very appropriate that we're going to talk about community and community building in our conversation. You know, I know that you're doing 2 jobs at the moment. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly what you said. Work 2 jobs. I'm always kind of picking up jobs here and there. I mean, I think that is just the way my brain works. Is something's exciting and new, what can I do? Can I jump in? But I do need structure in my life. So I work 2 roles. My full-time role is at Fidelity. I am the director of advancement and growth for digital communities there, extensively helping to build a digital peer-to-peer space and community for financial wealth advisors, kind of creating that space for them to find that sense of belonging amongst one another in this digital space, because there really isn't something like that and to the size that we're looking to build it. And then part-time, so every week I go in and I've been building out the digital presence and digital community for Paris Hilton. So I am the Web3 community manager there, really kind of maintaining that community on Discord, working with our VP of growth to design really how we're moving this Paris Hilton audience. And so those are the 2 roles that I have. I kind of joke I'm the finance boyfriend and the finance boyfriend's girlfriend.
I love that.
That like I can during the day I'm on calls talking about the market and capital gains, and then in the afternoons I'm talking about the simple life and glitter and unicorns and rainbows. And so I really love that kind of duality of my day jobs.
Yeah, it really is polar opposite. It's great. I love it. I would love to hear a little bit more about like how this setup, works for you. Like, what do you like about it? Like, how does it relate to like how your brain works?
Definitely. I mean, so I think something that's been really super helpful in both of these roles is I've just had like massive over communication with my managers, and there are boundaries that I have in place. Like, I don't do calls before 9 a.m. because I am a night owl and I need to be a night owl and I need to be able to work kind of like the way that I work, because sometimes my day might look like on paper, like most people do like an 8 to 5 or a 9 to 5, right? I can't work that way. I need to take breaks. I need moments where I stop doing what I'm doing and can focus on something else, so that when I come back to it, it's now exciting again. Because I get very bored very quickly. So, a typical day for me and the way that I've structured it might look like, hey, I have 2 or 3 meetings, but for the rest of that day is like open space that I actually do block off on my calendar as like focus time. You get to decide, is that focus time being used for a Paris project or a Fidelity project? And that really depends on the priorities, but it allows me to kind of go back and forth between them without getting bored with one of them. Oftentimes when I find that I've been bored with a certain task, I just can't focus. I'm logged off like in my brain. I might be logged on and like green on the computer, right? But I am not putting in my best energy. I'm not putting in my best effort. I can't be as productive as I'd like to be. And so it's honestly strange to be like, hi, Rachel, brain, to be more productive, you actually need to like stop doing the things that that are boring you and do something else that's exciting. And so it's really nice to kind of make that balance.
Did it take some time for you to figure out that this is the kind of work situation that worked best for you? Like what led to that?
I think yes. I mean, honestly, now when I'm thinking about just like my past roles where I was losing my mind of boredom. Nothing was exciting. Nothing was new. I was like sitting in this room, like in the office from like 8 to 5. And then like everyone would leave. And then I'm like, I didn't get anything done today. And ultimately what ended up happening is like, I was so bored at my job. I was like making my own, like I started building my own company on the side. And so like I ended up building the first online marketplace made by and for Latinas.
That's amazing.
Because I was just like, I'm bored and like I hate, I used to work in fashion. I was like, I hate what I'm doing right now. Like I'd really love to create this online community and space where people can buy things made by and for Latinas, and we can talk about what does it mean to be Latina and like have in-person events. And so honestly, I got into community because I was so bored at my job and I needed a creative outlet and I needed something else to do. That's what I was telling you. Like if I don't have two things to do, my brain will just do it. It'll just like start
create something else.
Yeah, it'll just be like, let's do something else. Let's try something else.
Yeah, because I was wondering like if there were any tools and strategies that you kind of needed day to day to support with any challenges that maybe you need less so now that you found like this environment.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think like I will work later in the afternoons or evenings during the week. And so I think having a work from home or a more flexible work schedule has been helpful for me in that because it allows me to tap into my most like productive, creative, focused times. Like honestly, like putting the hours of 7 p.m. and like 11 p.m., I'm probably the most focused I am all day. And so I could just like sit and like hammer out like a lot, like super focused. But between the hours of probably 2 p.m. and 4 p.m., I'm always like, I'm useless right now. Like there's not much I can do to like jumpstart that unless it's something that's new and exciting. And I have to kind of create that faux excitement around it. The tools and resources are really just like learning how to structure my day so that it works for me and I can be productive. But B, also being able to communicate with my team and managers and people I work with and having some firm boundaries, which I think took me a while to figure out. I mean, I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And so I didn't know. I just thought I was like, there's something wrong with me. Why can't I do this like everybody else? And it's actually, no, like I can. It just needs to be in this structure, in this format.
Yeah. Yeah. How has the diagnosis changed the way that you perceive yourself and your challenges?
Yeah, I think oftentimes as a kid, especially as a young girl, now looking back, it's like obviously I had ADHD, but it was just your chatty Kathy. Like I had a book like when I was in first grade that was like my talking book. So when I talked out of turn, my teacher had to like write this thing and to come back home with this like talking book. Like Rachel talks too much in class. Rachel does, very like I was, like I wasn't, because I think the diagnosis of young boys and young girls is very different in just our upbringing and societal expectations. These are character traits that I've then just assigned to myself. So I think when I got the diagnosis and recognizing like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I wasn't a chatty Kathy. Maybe I just had ADHD. And that kind of, it was strange. Like I love talking with people. I'm a people person, but I think removing that character trait from myself and recognizing, oh, this is just how my brain works was something that was really impactful for me. I think feeling that your brain is that it's okay the way that it functions and that there are tools and there are other people. And so when you do ask for those things like, hey, like the way I structure my day is not strange or abnormal. In fact, it's totally normal for the way that my brain works and operates. And it's a massive superpower in a lot of other ways. I think it's what ultimately, when I look back on my life, it's like, well, no duh, Rachel. Like I graduated a year early from college, and it's people be like, oh, you're so smart. And it's like, no, it's because I didn't want to do things I didn't want to do. Like I found shortcuts, which is a very like ADHD brain. It's like, that's not bringing me joy. That's not exciting. How do I get out of that quickly as possible?
Yeah. Like you mentioned the word superpower. Like are there any other superpowers you want to talk about?
Yeah. So I definitely think my capacity to try new things. Like I am so much more I have an openness to experiment. I'm far more scientific in that way, right? It's like I think growing up I thought I hated math. That's another character trait that I was given as a kid. Like, you hate math, you don't like it. And I was like, all right, I hate math forever. Turns out like I love math. I love I'm an Excel freak. I'm a freak in the sheets in Excel.
Never heard that. Love it.
Yeah, freak in the Excel sheets. I'm so obsessed with it because it is this kind of game. The way that I build my life has always been gamified. I gamify most things. I gamify cleaning my room. I gamify how I cook meals. It's always, there's some little game that I've developed or built, and I think it makes working with me more fun, right? The way that I interact with team members, the way that I lead and manage teams is different. I think the other thing that I would say that I love about my ADHD is that I can hyper focus. I can put in the energy and effort to be super attentive. Like I will start a project and then I'll look up and it's been like 4 hours later and I'm like, where did that go? Totally just in my brain. And I think that's really cool too. That I can, if I set my mind to it, if it's something that is new and exciting and brings me joy, that I'm able to tap into. And I don't think a lot of people are able to do that.
Yeah, definitely great. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about being in more open communication with your managers and like setting boundaries and like asking for what you need, like, breaking things down into manageable tasks. What would you say to our listeners in terms of, how to kind of have the courage to talk to your manager, and what are the ways that people can learn how to self-advocate in that way?
Yeah. So I definitely think in order to self-advocate and like talk to your manager, like the first step is to understand like what are your needs. So I think really nailing down like what do I need to be successful, and leaning into that feeling of like, if I don't have this, if I don't do this, then I can't be productive or successful. And I want to be productive and successful. And then I think too is like, if you don't already have regular touch bases with your manager, whether that's like a weekly one-on-one or a monthly, like let's like reflection time. If your manager isn't already doing that with you, like set that up with them. Make sure you have that constant connection with them. And it doesn't have to be micromanaging. Honestly, like my one-on-ones, the first 10 to 15 minutes, I want to talk about like what I did that weekend or what they did that weekend. Like we need to like just establish a sense of who I am as a person, like outside of work, so that when I start talking about work, they see me as a person and not as a cog in the machine. Practice asking for it and ask for it in the same way you'd ask for like access to like a file or a resource.
I think that's great advice. Thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with me, Rachel.
Yeah. I mean, this was really great. It was super fun to kind of even just reflect in the moment as to what works, and nice reminder for myself. So I appreciate the time and the questions, and giving me that opportunity to even just reflect with myself. It's super, super cool.
You've been listening to How'd You Get That Job from the Understood Podcast Network. This show is for you, so we want to make sure you're getting what you need. Email us at thatjob@understood.org with your thoughts about the show. Or maybe you'd like to tell us how you got that job. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to learn more about the topics we covered today, check out the show notes for this episode. We include more resources as well as links to anything we mentioned in the episode. Also, one of our goals at Understood is to help change the workplace so everyone can thrive. Check out what we're up to at u.org/workplace. That's the letter u.org/workplace. Understood.org is a resource dedicated to help people who learn and think differently discover their potential and thrive. Learn more at understood.org/mission. How'd You Get That Job is produced by Margie DeSantis and edited by Mary Mathis. Brianna Berry is our production director. Our theme music was written by Justin D. Wright, who also mixes the show. For the Understood Podcast Network, Laura Key is our editorial director, Scott Cashier is our creative director, and Seth Melgnick is our executive producer. And I'm your host, Eleni Matheu. Thank you for listening.